so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. And after years of exploring the awe-inspiring truth of the ultimate nature of reality on the show, I'm super excited to announce that we are now casting a wider net with the new late-night style consciousness elevating talk show called Optimistic, which is going to feature none other than you, the listeners. Once your own awakening has begun to bloom and you realize that everyone is an extension of you and that everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself, you quickly realize the only game in town is to help wake up our sleeping brothers and sisters. And that is exactly what Optimistic is designed to do. To take this show from reaching thousands of people every day to a next level video production that can ultimately reach millions. So if you've already felt the call to etch your name in eternity as a soul who played an important role in propelling the wave of awakening that's just really beginning to sweep our planet at this crucial time in the evolution of our planet, I'm asking you to answer the call to join me in co-creating Optimistic. There are multiple exciting ways you can co-create this experience with me and the rest of the Optimistic family that are all outlined on our new webpage, optimistic.tv. Check it out, choose the option that is in the highest alignment with you, and together we can propel a wave of awakening that will create a positive ripple of impact that reverberates in our lives and the lives of others, which will ultimately help deliver the world into the heaven on earth planet of paradise it's destined to become. Get in the game, folks, and please join me at optimistic.tv so you have your own hero's tale to tell yours or someone's great-grandchildren about one day. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads. Here we grow again. So grateful to be back with you as always. And today I have Christopher David Jackson back on the show. It's been a few months since he's swooped in to bless us up with his presence. Chris, what's up, buddy?
Good morning. Rise and shine.
Rise and shine. I had Sonia Sophia, who's been a regular co-host for several years yesterday, and then you today. So I'm getting all my fave friends, soul family, coming through this week. So I'm doing absolutely terrific on this Tuesday.
Wonderful.
Well, Mr. Jackson, Sir Jackson. And if any of you guys, by the way, want to check out, Chris has been on for the last couple of years as a regular co-host as well. You can always go back to the archives, because for those of you who are hearing him for the first time today, I'm sure you're going to love it. You're going to want more. Go and check out the archives. And if you search Chris Jackson, all the past shows will come up on positivehead.com. So yeah. So Chris, what do you want to talk about today, man?
Well, it's funny. This year has been like probably one of the most radical transformational, years I've ever experienced. And I feel like there's some great insights that have come through, that many could benefit from, in regards to communication, how we process things, and really optimizing, turning our relationships into elationships, where we all rise together.
Yeah.
So, bringing this back into also, expanding on the one-der-fullness that we've talked about a number of times on the show and my upcoming book. It's really this wonderful, masterful modality that one story that unites all stories and all of humanity, eliminating all human suffering and, for individuals, and getting us back to connection, to our true power and grace and ease, having everything that we want.
I like the sound of that. Yeah, it's definitely been an adventure and of course, part of what I think we'll be talking about with this whole, how people process things differently and how we can approach, interactions with our friends and family, bringing this realization to the table so that we can take further strides to putting ourselves in the other person's seat, so to speak, and they're walking in their shoes. And I think it really helps to clear up a lot. And I know, you and I have had our own journey in that process together. And I know, in some of your love relationships, there's been a lot of that for you. And so, I think this is a super, super helpful and powerful topic to explore today. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Brandon, for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. So why don't you just start, giving us a little bit of a breakdown of what you've experienced and. Yeah.
So, for those who are just coming in on the one-der-fullness conversation, and that's spelled ONEDERFULLNESS.
And let's try and minimize the der as much as possible, but there is some der in there sometimes.
Yeah.
Der.
I think that's actually part of the brilliance of it. One-der-fullness. Yeah. It's like, of course we're one and we're full. Yeah. The elegant simplicity of it really is just remembering us, getting us centered back into who and what we truly are, which is pure love. And, I think everybody like deep down knows this, when we're children, we're born as pure love. Like we literally love everything. There's no judgment. There's no distinction.
Except nap time.
Yeah.
Except nap time.
and then we begin to adulterate ourselves, which really means to become impure, as we take on all of this conditioning from, what I like to call diseased thoughts. And those thought forms then, filter down into, our physicality over time and create actual physical dis-ease.
Right.
So in that, remembering who and what we are is pure love, the really like simple cheat code to remember here is if you're being pure love, all you see is pure love. All you hear is pure love. All you speak is pure love. And then to expand upon that, like what I've been experiencing is getting to practice that and embody it, through some of like the greatest challenges I've ever experienced this year, in what, I think we talked about before, me finding my twin flame being one of the most magical, miraculous experiences for, 2 or 3 months. And then what I haven't gotten to share yet is how that quickly descended into hell, in one instant, and then it was literally like dancing with the devil, which, it ended up being one of the most magical, miraculous experiences. Also, when I was able to, take on, one of your mantras, Brandon, which is, nothing ever happens to us. It's always happening for us.
Right.
And when we look at things that way, instead of seeing things as a problem, which shut us down, we actually open up to the opportunities in any moment.
Right.
And when we do that, we shift our trajectory from, creating the lowest possible outcomes to the greatest possible outcomes. And
right.
Anything and everything is always able to benefit us when we're looking for the opportunities. So, what recently came up for me in this twin flame relationship was accessing my deepest core childhood wound, which I hadn't really been, I'd kind of been present to it before, but hadn't really integrated it or gotten the full measure of experiencing it. And that was a fear of abandonment.
Right.
I had never been so vulnerable as I had been in this relationship because, I think the relationship was so perfect and so magical. I literally let go of all reservations, all protective mechanisms, and just went all in for the first time. Just giving everything. I've never given so much to a person. And the funny thing, it was just like gifts, money, and there was no reservation about it. It was like I felt compelled to give in such a way that it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And it was beautiful because in that process, I actually, in giving so much, I got to experience myself as being so much.
Right.
And that was powerful.
That's an important piece when you talk about giving to anyone, like of yourself. It's like in a lot of times we're even better oftentimes at giving than receiving. And I think it's really important as the person on the receiving end to realize the gift that it is to give, obviously assuming it's in a very healthy, energetic, balanced kind of way. But to actually, not cut people off from that experience. Sometimes someone will offer to pay for something, let's say, or whatever. And you're like, no, I got it. No. It's like, well, you're actually robbing that person of the opportunity to provide and be abundant and
contribute
sort of
to
show
you.
Their love. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, a friend once said to me, stop being greedy with all the giving. One of the greatest gifts that we can actually give to people is giving them the opportunity to contribute to us and experience how powerful they are.
Right.
Because it's truly like when we give is when we're able to feel more abundant.
Right.
And that was one of the magical things in this is like it was funny. I gave gifts and money in some cases where it was like, I didn't even necessarily have it to give.
Right.
But this compulsion was so overpowering. I just did it. And then what was funny is even though I didn't have it to give, I found all sorts of resources and things coming into play that were replenishing me.
Right. That's a huge factor that I've seen time and time again from giving. And it's like it creates, currency is meant to flow, right?
You've had somebody on talking about abundance and how it all works, and I got to like I'd always had it kind of philosophically, but in this process, I got to experience it.
Right.
In a way that I never had before, because like I said, giving without any reservation and without any expectation. It was powerful. And so in that process, not having any self-protection around any of this stuff, what happened was it brought up different parts of myself that I had never really gotten present to.
Right.
And one of them was my physical and emotional, aspects of myself. And so, when things started to go awry or there was something happening that triggered me, I found myself almost taken back to feeling like a 3-year-old. And I just felt like emotionally and physically out of control.
Right.
It was like a trigger where she wasn't responding to me, and in that moment, these deep fears came up that I really couldn't connect to. I just felt out of control, where I'm usually, like you experienced me, Brandon. I tend to be like the guy that could be on the battlefield with, like, people bleeding and mortars going off, and I can be totally calm and collected.
Right. True.
And in these moments, I had none of that. I have all these tools and resources, but I couldn't access any of them. I literally felt like a 3-year-old that was drowning, trying to scramble to keep my head above water. And when that happened, I reacted in a way that was, I basically, out of a fear of abandonment, I made a choice to say, like, I can't do this anymore. It's done. And I abandoned. Yeah. And I didn't see it until afterwards. And then the whole, response then, where I think I was doing that to, like, control the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Where I get that person then to give me what I wanted, which was the affirmation again, and, like, chasing after me, telling me, no, they really love me. And instead I got the opposite response. So when I came through with that abandonment, I got a totally cold response. It was like, okay, fine. You want it to be over? It's over. And I was like, wait, no, that's not what I want. And then I couldn't communicate, like, because, she wouldn't respond to me. And that was, I experienced, like, huge death in a way. And just, like, the greatest physical and emotional pain and suffering I think I've ever experienced. And what that brought up was this, I finally was able to connect with what I was experiencing physically and emotionally. And it took me back to, being 3 years old and in the kitchen, and my parents were fighting, and my father, like, grabbed my mom, who I think was being kind of, nasty toward him verbally. And he just started shaking her, arms, and her head started, like, hitting up against the kitchen cabinet, and she started screaming, and, my eyes bugged out of my head. I started crying.
Especially as a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that. It was like my whole world was shattered, and I saw my mom screaming, and then I started crying, and I remember grabbing my dad's leg with my entire body, and crying, "Stop, Daddy, stop, please." And he looked down at me, I can remember, and went white like a ghost, let go of her, and then left. And that was, like, the beginning of the end of their marriage. And I remember when he left, at that moment, I made it mean that it was my fault that he left.
Right.
And that it was my sharing, my expressing my emotions that made him leave.
Right.
So that day I I began to cut off from my emotions, my physical and emotional, being. And that was, what I got to reconnect to through this experience, which was powerful. What I experienced, is reconnecting to this deep core childhood wound that, I hadn't really connected with before. And in that moment, I got to see that, this whole twin flame experience brought that up.
Yeah.
And, I believe that we actually have, similar, like, reflective core childhood wounds that came up. And yet the way that we deal with them is completely opposite. So it's like, for me, where I, like, always want to deal with everything, verbally and mentally, it's like, I want to confront whatever is going on. what I experienced in this case was, her not communicating at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that was very triggering for me.
Yeah.
Because I realized, how triggering it was for me to not be responded to. And then I got to have this whole experience, which was something that, you became a part of too. It was realizing another wound that I had, which was not being responded to.
Right.
And how that brought up something from childhood also, where it was like, I would try to get my mom's attention. She'd be looking at something or reading something, and I'd be like, Mom. And like, she wouldn't flinch. And I'd be like, Mom. And I'd be like, does she not hear me? I don't understand what's going on. And then I'd say, Mom, again. And she'd all of a sudden flash up and then scream at me. What?
Yeah.
Can't you see I'm busy? And my eyes would bug out of my head again. And I'd run into the other room.
Yeah.
And then she would chase after me and like force me to let her hug me.
Right.
Which felt like a violation, as a child, because it's like I didn't feel safe. And it's like the last thing I wanted at that moment was that physical attention, because I didn't feel safe.
Right.
And so then I realized, like, I had this whole thing that was incomplete with her too, which was not being responded to. And this whole notion that, that some people's way of communicating sometimes is not communicating.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. I've experienced that same thing only one time in my life, which, with one person that I would consider like a soulmate, twin flame kind of energy. And that happened to me where, once things kind of went south, they would stop responding to me, and I'd never had anyone sort of resist responding to me like this. And it was like the only time in my life I've ever become somewhat like obsessive about trying to get someone to respond, and it was it was definitely challenging experience.
Yeah. And it brought up some things too, realizing that, that not responding is a form of communication.
Yes.
And getting to a place of being complete with that, being okay with people not responding, like giving them time and space, right. and understanding that, sometimes people need that time and space to process stuff. Where I feel like, Brandon, like you and I may, very often always want to confront things and talk through them.
Yep.
Some people's way of processing is not talking through stuff. Like it takes them time to actually get connected to what it is they're experiencing, to what's going on. And, and then like you had mentioned before that, there were times where it's like, if you didn't respond to a call or a text, and then I would call again, and you would experience that as like me being pushy.
Right.
Or trying to force you to communicate with me. And I was like, no, that's never what I'm trying to do. It's just like, from my perspective, I'd always seen it like if you weren't responding, that maybe you weren't hearing me.
Right. And which goes back to your mother's experience, your experience with your mother, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So getting connected to all these things that were incomplete, from childhood, and then also getting the opportunity to grow and expand into a greater understanding and awareness of how we interact with each other.
Right. Yeah, I think that's such a crucial thing to start to just realize, for everyone to realize, like anyone hearing this, it's like when you really, in a lot of people, it'll be kind of like a light bulb going on. Like, guess what? Not everyone, actually, most people are processing things somewhat differently or radically different than you do. And their process and way of dealing with issues or conflict or, road bumps or challenges or blockages is different. And their interpretation is colored by their past experiences, which are radically different than your own, oftentimes, not always. Sometimes they may be very similar. And those are the people that we probably, typically have, I think, the easiest communication and interaction with. Like, you and I, like you said, I mean, if anything, we tend to over communicate, right?
Yep.
And there are people who are the exact opposite. I mean, when I think back to my ex partner and when she sort of decided to just cut off all communication, I had never had anyone that I could not get through like that. And it was the most challenging, frustrating thing that had ever happened to me. It just like drove me a bit mad. And I was like, what is this? I'd never had this with anyone, and nor had I ever cared so much. I'm typically pretty, well, whatever, I let things come and go. I don't get too overly attached to people or things, and, don't really have an addictive personality, I don't feel. And it was like, what's going on? This is like all new, feeling like this. And, It was, and I finally ultimately let it completely go. And, it even still, I can think about it and it's kind of like a little bit of a pang, in my heart. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was a similar experience, and, what it opened up for me was getting to really realize, we talked before about like masculine and feminine forms of communication.
Right.
And I think this is where we kind of get the opportunity to see that, I look at like the masculine form of communication as being very active.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Verbal and mental, cerebral.
Right.
And the more feminine aspects of communication is the more physical and emotional.
Right.
And giving ourselves the time and space to process things. And, it brought up something else that was great. It's like, God, what's his name again, Brandon? The guy who does The Way of the Superior Man.
David Data?
David Data. Yeah.
David Data.
The whole Way of the Superior Man, what he talks about. So like the masculine form of communication would be the actual content, right, of what we're expressing. So it's like what I'm saying, the words that I'm saying and expressing. And and the more feminine aspects, would be like the emotional content of what's coming through. So I'll often say to people when I'm doing coaching, with them is that, oftentimes we'll hear what somebody says and we'll be, triggered by it, right? Like my mom as an example, I can say this is like a great example. Is, we'll be fighting or arguing about something in the past, and she will say something like, I hate you and I never want to speak to you again. And then the next day I'm not talking to her, and she'll be like, how come you're not talking to me? And I'll say to her, well, you said you hated me and you never wanted to speak to me again. Right. And then she'll say, I never said that. And I'll be like, is she crazy? And then what came up and what I realized from, Data's work was that, that's an emotional expression. Saying, I hate you, I never want to speak to you again. And, from a feminine aspect of communicating, it's an emotional expression where they're not even necessarily paying attention to the words that are coming out of their mouth.
Right.
And she didn't even remember saying that to me. Right.
Right.
And yet at the same time, it's the feminine way of expressing is emotional. It doesn't necessarily pay attention to the words.
Right.
So getting that there are different ways in which we communicate, different ways in which we express and experience. It gives us this great, what I've gotten from a lot of this is a liberation in a way, of not being so attached to the words that come out of people's mouths, or not being so attached to the words that aren't coming out of their mouth.
Right.
Instead of getting so attached to wanting to have communication in the way that I want it, now I can begin to actually listen to what's not being said. Listen to the emotions that are being experienced.
Right.
You know, and the big empowering thing that came through all of this was realizing that no matter what a person is saying or not saying, doing or not doing, that through this whole process, if we stay committed to being the pure love and wonderfulness that we are, it doesn't matter what people are saying or not saying, doing or not doing. We become the space for the greatest possible outcomes.
Right.
You know, so it's even though my mom says, I hate you, I never want to speak to you again. If I stay committed to, you know, I love this person and I'm going to continue to be pure love, the fact that she said that won't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I become the space to sublimate that entire experience, which really means to transform whatever happened or didn't happen into the greatest possible outcome.
And the meaning kind of, it does become essentially now you've transformed it into an opportunity to be love, regardless of what the other person is sort of projecting on the surface. And so now you've completely transformed that into an opportunity for yourself, as opposed to something that wounds you. And it's like the ultimate upgrade. It's a gift, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and we turn everything into the greatest gift when we perceive it as a gift.
Right. Isn't that's incredible alchemy, right? It's spiritual alchemy. Sifting and shifting perspectives until love emerges is how I like to put it. And
exactly.
That's
I mean,
truly
it's
what
like
you're doing.
you said before, Brandon, which I've heard you say many times, is that nothing happens to us. It's always happening for us.
Right. And through us.
And by perceiving things that way, we convert it into that.
Yeah.
You know, if you interact with it as though it's happening for you, it literally turns into that.
Yep. You're transmuting it. You are spiritual alchemy, man. It's so powerful. It's like the ultimate magician's trick, right? It's not even a trick though. That sounds like it's not real. It's true magic, right? You are realizing how powerful you are, showing up to the space, and you're transmuting all these things that otherwise can take you down a rabbit hole of pain and hurt. And you're just, you're sprinkling perspective and love upon it, and voila, abracadabra, right? You're becoming the magician.
Faith and trust and a little bit of pixie dust.
I love it. Oh man. Well, this has been awesome, Chris. This is really, really cool to reconnect with you and catch the latest and greatest updates in your world. You always are, probably, guys, I hear from Chris at least once every couple weeks where it's like, a text or something. Oh my gosh, the upgrades, like what's coming through. It's like you're just doing it. You're deep in it and doing the work. And I applaud you. And it's been so awesome to be on this journey with you. And, those of you who are coming to the Mystic Manor, which is, the first, it's starting to fill up, and Chris is going to be there a lot and helping to, spend some time with some of you guys and doing deep dive downloads and coaching and everything. So it's just awesome to work with you and continue to co-create, my friend.
Well, likewise, brother. Yeah, I love you so much, Brandon. And, it's just, I guess, if anybody takes anything away from this, what I've gotten in these past couple months is that truly by looking for the opportunities and everything, you find them. It brings up that old, I think it was a biblical saying, right? Whatever you seek, ye shall find.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you're seeking the opportunities, you will find opportunities.
Yep.
And, by looking to be upgraded by everything that's happening, you will be upgraded by it.
Yep.
And then everybody gets upgraded around us. And it's literally like, by being the pure love and one-der-fullness that you are, you constantly become the space to turn hell into heaven. the darkest, most dankest circumstances turn into our greatest gifts.
Indeed. Well, you're doing it, my friend. You are walking the walk. And I've, in some of our own challenges in the recent months, seen how you handled it with so much grace and ease. And, even things that, truly, because that's one of the hardest things there is when someone is appearing to sort of critique you or tell you what is, what they're struggling with about, I know for me, if someone's telling me, hey, Brandon, I don't like this about you or that, or this is challenging, it's so easy to get defensive. And, to be able to bring this presence and awareness to those moments, it's like that is truly, leveling up. And you are doing it. We are all doing it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful ride, beautiful vantage point from this new plateau that we are all emerging onto as we continue the eternal ascent. I feel like every time we reach a new plateau, there will be another infinity that stretches out before us for even more growth. And so we never get it done. The journey is the goal. And I am just happy that you are on this journey with me, Chris, and all of you listening. I do have a song queued up here to play that is beautiful and appropriate. New music from Ayla Nerio. And this one is called All of This. Hope you guys enjoy. Until next time, journey well. Love you so, so much.
Thank you.
Also, before we cue up today's song, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now if you go to positivehead.com/YO universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Lastly, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part song to the moon. Cross desert and sand, cross time and land, cross hidden and blue. You've sung to the moon. Comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe. I am but a part of this. All I am is all I give. Everything that comes to me comes as sure as I will breathe.